Before we start today's podcast, I want to ask you a question. What if you could change a life? Key for Life is a charity whose mission is to break the cycle of crime by reducing youth reoffending. Its award-winning 7-step rehabilitation program used both in and out of prisons has been independently evaluated and recognized by the Ministry of Justice Data Lab as one of the most effective models for creating change in this area. Only 14% of participants on the Key for Life program have reoffended 1 year post-release, compared to the national rate of 64%. Key for Life was founded and is run by Eva Hamilton, one of the most extraordinary women I know, who was also my first guest on Bandwidth Conversations. I'm a trustee for the charity and am privileged to mentor a wonderful and talented young man. There are many ways people can help: volunteering, mentoring, providing a work taster, or donating. For more information, please look at www.keyforlife.org.uk, all lowercase. Help change a life. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Bandwidth Conversations, a podcast that finds out about the stories and journeys of artists, performers, and rock stars of life. My guest today is a rock star in every sense of the title. He is one of the most successful and prolific musicians, songwriters, and producers in the UK. He has more than 50 gold and platinum albums to his credit and has worked with a variety of top artists ranging from Mark Ronson and The Wanted to Katie Melua and Beverly Night. He has also composed the music for films, musicals, and even an opera. His best-known and long-standing collaboration is with Robbie Williams, with whom he co-wrote some of the biggest hits of the 1990s and 2000s, including Angels, Rock DJ, Feel, Millenium, and Let Me Entertain You. I went to see him play live with his band The Lemon Trees recently and met some of the people he's working with on a musical animation that's due out at the end of this year. That's 2024. I'm looking forward to hearing about some of his present and past collaborations, his many and varied endeavours, the extraordinary life he has led in the spotlight in fame's pressure cooker of Screaming Girls, Adulation and Scrutiny. I am so grateful to be talking today to Guy Chambers. Guy, thank you so much for being here.
That's all right, Kate. Thanks for that ridiculous introduction. That's very amusing.
It's true. On Chris Difford's brilliant I Never Thought It Would Happen podcast, Chris was a guest on this show. You said that as a teenager, you did Affirmations, which was kind of way ahead of your time to be doing them because everyone's doing them now, but not many people knew about that then. But what were your affirmations?
To be interviewed.
Oh, no, really? Be careful what you wish for.
Yes. The main ones was to be interviewed, to be in a band and to play a stadium.
Okay.
Because I think I saw footage on the TV of the Beatles playing one of the stadiums, maybe Shea Stadium, and I remember thinking that looks really exciting. So that was it really. It was be in a band and play a stadium. It was quite simple. Took me a while to get there, but I did get there in the end.
Having sort of looked at your career, it didn't look as if it took that long, because am I right in saying that when you left the Guildhall School of Music, you went straight to working with Julian Cope?
Yeah, but that wasn't stadiums.
Okay.
That was clubs in Japan, which was tremendous fun. I mean, I did an arena tour after that with the Waterboys. We were supporting Simple Minds. We went around France doing arenas. And that was a taste of what was to come many years later. But I also, I didn't want to play stadiums with doing someone else's music.
Yes.
I wanted to do stadiums with my own music. And that did take a long time until that happened. I was probably 39, that kind of age, by the time Robbie and I did our first stadium, which was in Germany. Yeah, so that's, in pop years, that's really old.
Chris Difford said that when he was with Squeeze, they spent years touring and playing to people who largely didn't want to listen to them. And then it all changed. Reading about you, it looked as if you went from zero to hero very, very quickly.
No, well, I was in a band in Liverpool called Hamby and the Dance, which was a glorious failure. We signed to Virgin, and I remember meeting Richard Branson at the signing, Virgin spent a lot of money on that band, at least £1 million, at least. And this is a long time ago. This is, God, I was 19, so 42 years ago. So £1 million, what would it be now? At least double, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe 4 times. So huge. They were Virgin priority. And we did a tour of the UK, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood was our support band.
They were your support band?
They were our support band. And that band came to nothing. So, yes, that was an example of a band that nobody was that interested in. So I learned a lesson quite early on that you can have £1 million spent on you, but if the package isn't right, you're just going to be, it's just a complete, well, I wouldn't say it's a complete waste of time, because I enjoyed playing in that band and enjoyed the whole journey, because I was only 19, so it was very exciting. But, what a waste of money, basically.
Unfortunately, it wasn't yours.
Luckily, it wasn't my money. It was Richard Branson's. And he did all right for himself.
Yes, he definitely has not starved as a result.
No.
But in 1992, you then form another band, which is the Lemon Trees, and
yes.
You wrote and produced and performed with them for 3 years. And you did one album, and all 5 singles on that album got into the top 100.
Yeah, and the album did 30,000 sales, which at the time I thought was really bad. But then recently I found out that Life Through a Lens, the first record I did with Robbie, initially only sold 36,000 copies in the first few weeks.
Oh, did it?
Before Angels came out. And that's made me think, wow, the Lemon Trees actually did pretty well, considering Rob was, very famous. And we were completely starting from scratch. At the time, the fact that failed was really hard on me, but it was actually the right thing, because it meant that I was available to work with Rob. Only 3 years after Lemon Trees split up, I was working with Rob. So, but those 3 years were pretty lean. I remember doing a tour with Jimmy Nail, and I didn't want to do a tour with Jimmy Nail, but I had to because my roof was leaking.
And did you ever think at any point when you were then in those lean years that you should try something else?
Yeah, I did. I thought I should maybe be a teacher. I nearly gave up. I really did. And it was just God intervened, is all I can say. I wasn't very spiritual back then, but I'm on a spiritual path now. And I really believe in the higher power. And the higher power definitely moved into my life when Rob came through the door. There's no question about it.
Am I right in saying that he was given a list of several people to write with? And so was it the higher power or serendipity, or was there more to that story that made him choose you?
Yeah, no, it was his mother, Jan. I think next to my name in brackets, it said Lemon Trees. And he had no idea who that was. But his mum did.
Okay.
She'd seen our videos on the chart show, and she'd liked them. And she said to Rob, "Oh, I like them. You should work with him." So there were 10 names on that list.
Wow.
And some of them, I won't mention who some of the other names is, because I don't want to be negative about any other writers, but some of the writers at that point were more successful than me, for sure. It was just incredible luck. And, higher power. That's,
Yes, and in fact,
whatever you want to call it. The Lemon Trees was a good band. The songs, that's why I went to the trouble of re-recording them recently. The songs do still sound good, I think.
Yes.
The songs were good. There was a reason why Rob's mum liked them, and Rob's mum's got good taste, Rob gets his talent not just from his dad, because his dad was a singer and a comedian. So he's sort of retired now, but his mum was also very musical, But you never know in showbiz where you're going to get a break. That's why I always say to young musicians to be, turn up on time,
mm-hmm.
and be kind to people and take numbers, Keep taking numbers, because you never, and call people up regularly just to say hi. you never know when a job might appear out of the blue. And sometimes you just have to call someone up, say, hi, how's it going? And maybe you're not even doing very much. It doesn't matter. But just through that call, the other person might say, oh, I'm really glad you called, actually. I'm just forming a band and you play keys, don't you? And would you like to do it? Would you like to try it out?
Yes.
And you could call that hustling. I guess it is. But I wasn't actually very good at that when I was in my 20s. But I kind of wish I was better at it. But I do a bit of it now. I call people up now and try and remind people that I'm not retired, you know.
Well, and it's a lost art, calling people, I think, because people message. And I think actually the physical phone call, the voice on the phone makes a big difference because it's quite rare now.
Do you think so?
Yeah, it seems to be very much. I mean, my children are messaging a lot, but they call a lot less than I would have done.
I like calling people. I'm a big heavy phone user.
Well, it clearly was serendipitous in one way or another because you guys were the perfect match. And in your first album that you wrote together, Life Through a Lens, which includes Lazy Days, Angels, Let Me Entertain You, it's 11 tracks in all, I think. And you wrote the entire album in I actually read two things. You read the entire album in 12 days, and then somewhere else I read that you actually wrote it in 9 days. But whatever it is, it was really short. And the day that you wrote Angels, I think you actually weren't even going to go in that day. Is that right? You weren't feeling well.
Yeah, I had a sinus infection.
So what happened that day?
I called my mother and said, do you know of a doctor who would come round to the house? And she said, I probably got a number. I said, I want to call the doctor now and cancel the session. And she said, I've just got this feeling, Guy, do not cancel this session. Just got a feeling about it. Don't cancel. See the doctor after the session. So bless her. I mean, she's passed away now, but that was a big moment. And again, another thing I say to young musicians is really don't cancel unless you're literally on your deathbed. It's very, very flaky to cancel something.
Yeah.
I've never missed a gig, touch wood. I've done thousands of gigs. I've never missed one. And I've been very, very ill. I remember I had neurovirus once.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was with Robbie and we did a gig for Jeff Bezos in St. Luke's Church in Shoreditch, or wherever it is. So it was all for the Amazon team, you know, and he'd flown in on a helicopter. And I had neurovirus, you know, I was literally being sick every, 10 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
I was just flat on my back and I just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But we call it Dr. Showbiz. Once I got on the stage, I had a bucket next to me and I would throw up between songs.
That's so miserable for you.
It was, but, you know, that's part of being a musician is, you know, that cliche, the show must go on.
Yes.
You know, there's that amazing footage of Freddie Mercury. I don't know if you've seen it, recording his final vocals when he had AIDS.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's on YouTube. It's staggeringly amazing because he's so thin and he's just about to die. But he has a glass of champagne and he sings his arse off. It just sounds incredible. And he just wanted to sing to the last dying death. For me, I want to also play music, you know, right to the end somehow. I don't always know how to do it, but I'm determined to do it.
And can you tell us how that collaboration with Robbie worked? I mean, how would you sit together and be able to come up with a song like Angels, like Life Through a Lens, in such short period of time? Can you take us into that room with you, the two of you?
We had chemistry. I'm good at all the things he can't do and vice versa. So I'm good at harmonies, playing the piano, playing the guitar. He couldn't play anything at that point. So he was very reliant on a musician who was capable. He was very strong at words, concepts. He was writing poetry. He had a very thick, deep vocabulary. He was really into rap music, so he had all those references. He was funny. I'm quite funny, but he's properly funny. And obviously is also a complete show-off. And that wasn't something, that wasn't in my character, really. I'm quite shy, really. So the two of us, I'm also very diligent. When I'm behind something, I'm really behind it. I'm not partly behind it. I'm 100% behind it. He can be a bit lazy, maybe a bit careless sometimes. So I would sort of make sure that he paid enough attention. He wasn't careless with the songwriting, actually. No, I must say. When it came to songwriting, he was very diligent. But when it came to making the records, that was a whole other story. That was hard.
A friend of mine, David Yarrow, who is, I think, one of, if not the most successful photographer, he went one Christmas and photographed the cow herders in South Sudan. And he came up with this photograph that was called Mankind. And that was the photograph that changed everything for him. And I would imagine that Angels was the song that changed everything for you and Robbie. Can you describe sort of what happened around that song?
It was a huge relief because we were both aware that EMI were considering dropping him.
Oh, were they?
When we were on tour. We went on a tour before Angels was released, which was tremendous fun. But there was anxiety around the whole project. And Angels just took that anxiety away. And we started selling so many more records. And it went to number one, the album. And then it stayed there for a while. Initially went platinum, then it went double platinum, then it went triple platinum. It just kept selling. It was just... And then that meant that there was a demand for the next one. We knew we had an audience. For a songwriter, that's the most exciting thing in the world, having an audience.
Did the level of success surprise even you?
Oh, for sure, of course. And the speed that we got to that stadium. We got there, I think it took 2 years, maybe less. I'd have to look it up, but it's definitely no more than 2 years from the very first gig, which was Watford Town Hall, which was 800 people.
Wow.
Then the first stadium was in Cologne. I think it might have been June 99, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so less than 2 years, about a year and a half. That's very fast in pop music. It was very, very exciting. I can't lie. There's nothing... It was exhausting, but it was also very, very exciting.
Having watched the Robbie Williams documentary, and you're in it a lot, in fact, a lot of the filming is you.
It is.
And Robbie came across in that as quite vulnerable, sort of flagging that he needed help at times. And often in interviews, he'd say, I'm not doing well. There are highs and lows with that level of fame that you guys had. There are benefits, and I guess there's damage that comes with it as well. Could you talk about that sort of mix?
Yeah. Well, you'd get one piece of incredible news, like your record's triple platinum or whatever. And then on the same day, you'd find out that someone had sold your story to the Sun. There'd be a story coming on in the Sun. And the only way that story could have been harvested was from phone hacking. And we didn't realize at the time that they were listening to, well, both my phone and his phone. And his manager's phone.
Wow.
He knew exactly what was going on about everything. And we didn't realize how these stories were coming out. Some of them would be about his career. Some of them would be about his private life, or a night he'd had out in the Groucho Club, or just somebody he'd slept with, whatever silly stuff that only, I don't know, a generation before with rock stars in the 70s, that wasn't something they had to worry about in the 70s. Obviously, it's well known that rock stars behaved very badly in the 70s, or some of them did. But they didn't have to worry about stories in the papers, not really, because there were no cameras. Well, there were cameras, but they weren't... Well, there was a lot less cameras, and there certainly wasn't phone hacking. Phone hacking was very much used in our camp. So there was a lot of soul searching with him, sort of saying, well, where does this come from? How did this happen? Who's betrayed me?
Yes.
So there was a lot of distrust. And I mean, it's all in the documentary, but you see his mental health getting worse and worse. And I have to say the tabloids were a big part of that.
Well, I remember seeing the footage at the very beginning with Take That, and there was quite a bit of rivalry between the boys with you and Robbie. He was sort of the front man. How did you cope with that?
Well, I didn't want to be in the spotlight. Let's say that straight away. I love the fact that I'm not famous. I very rarely get bothered by anybody, which is great.
Yeah.
I was happy in my role as a supporter. It was a supporting role. Obviously being very well remunerated financially. His whole operation was very generous. You know, we all stayed in the same hotels. If he traveled in a private jet, we traveled with him in the private jet. So I was very, very, very well looked after. So, yeah, but it took a toll on him. You just have to watch the Netflix documentary. That's a very true representation of what it was like.
Yeah. And is there anything in there that you would like to have added, having watched it?
Yes. And this is something that I want to work on if I can get permission from his managers, which is to do, because there's a lot of footage that was not shown. And there was 48 minutes used of my footage. But I have many, many more hours that weren't shown. And I would like to do another documentary, which is just about the writing process of me and him writing together, because there's some great footage of us writing together and studio footage. I would have liked there to be a bit more music.
Yeah.
But, you know, it wasn't my documentary. It's about him. Yeah, I mean, I'm in it, but it's mainly, you know, he's the superstar, you know.
Yes.
I'm just a bit part of that.
Well, you were together for nearly 6 years. And in that time, you co-wrote 5 albums that were all UK number ones. So it was just a phenomenal collaboration. And then I think you disagreed about a song called Come Undone. And then I think at that point he was coming undone himself. And then you parted company.
Yeah, I got fired. I didn't want to part ways. I got fired. I got a call from the manager. I was in a rehearsal with the band because I was the MD of the band.
Yeah.
And the manager called me up and said, "You need to pack your bags, Guy. You're out of it. You're done."
That was it.
That was it.
And then did you hear anything from Robbie after that?
Yeah, he came round to my flat and he was very angry about various things.
And then you had a period of about 10 years when you were doing other things. But then a decade later, you came back together again and you've co-written and produced 3 more albums.
Yeah.
Again, all number ones. And then on top of that, you wrote together the songs in David Williams' The Boy in the Dress, the musical.
Yeah.
And there's now lots more that you do together besides. So how were those fences mended?
Well, I would say slowly. In 2007, I went out to LA to hang out with him, but he wasn't really ready then to work with me or actually work with anyone. So I had to be very patient and wait for him to be ready. Eventually he called me up it was actually 2013. So it was actually 11 years to do. The first thing I did was a guest spot at the O2 on his tour. I did that. And then he asked me to produce Swing Both Ways. And then we started writing together again, which initially was painful, very, very painful. The first day was awful.
Yeah, I bet.
But we came up with 2 really good songs on that day. It took a long time. It was a very long day. And there was a lot of songs he didn't like. And then luckily for me, I managed to write something right towards the end of the day that he did like.
In the interim of all of that, you worked with many other famous artists. You've written for and with the likes of James Blunt, Texas, Mel C, Diana Ross, Tom Jones, Kylie, Katie Melua. I mean, the list goes on. And you were and still are one of the most successful and in-demand songwriters of our generation, possibly any generation, in fact. Which song has the best story behind it of those?
You're putting me on the spot now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it depends what you mean. The word best is always very loaded, is it? I mean, there's funny stories.
Yes, funny story or standout story.
I mean, a funny story is the Tina Turner one, which I wrote 2 songs for her. And I prepared the tracks very diligently probably took me a week. And she walked in the studio, and the very first thing she says to me is, "They're in the wrong key. The key's not right. It's not high enough." I mean, now there's technology where you can just change the key, immediately. Well, almost immediately. It might take like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But back then you couldn't do that. So I had to re-record all of the instruments because I didn't have a band with me. It was just me, the engineer, and Tina Turner. I had to record. So we started with the piano. So it's me, the drums. The drums are on track. I knew the drums were right. So it was me and her and just the piano. So just very simple. And she was quite happy to sing along to that. This was the amazing lesson I learned that day, was that you can be Tina Turner, but she was happy to sing to anything. She didn't care. She just sang. And I'm looking at her through the booth and I'm like, wow, I'm putting together a track with Tina Turner. It was just so exciting.
Yeah.
And then I put the bass on it and she sang again. And I put the guitar on. She sang again. I think when we got to the fourth track, a take, she said, "I think I'm done." She was done. I mean, it was amazing. And that was, it was funny. And it was literally all of my hair stood on it. And when she started singing, I was just, oh my God, the power of it. And she wasn't young. This was very near the end of her career. And then we went out for dinner that night, me and my ex-wife, and we went to San Lorenzo in South Kensington. And
yes,
she'd been going there since 1967, I think she said. And the stories I got that night were really wonderful.
Oh, I bet.
It was all a bit overwhelming, to be honest, because I'm a huge Tina fan. Massive. So
yes, I am too. Yeah, and I've heard from other people, Guy Fletcher, who plays it with Dire Straits, how wonderful she was just as a person, that she, even though everyone around her was so impressed, but she was just lovely to everyone.
Yeah, she was very humble, is the word I would use. Humble, real.
Well, I was lucky enough to back Beverly Night in the band that I'm in, the Stacks, and I love your Beverly Night song, Come As You Are.
Thank you.
I've been playing it a lot, and it's such an upbeat, feel-good track. How did that one come about?
Well, I said to my manager that I wanted to work with her, and I think that was the first song we wrote together. So we just hit it off. We had similar things we liked. We both liked Lenny Kravitz. We both liked Sly and the Family Stone. We both liked Tina and Chaka Khan. Yeah. Well, I'm still really good friends with her now. I love Bev. There was a time when, she got dropped by her label.
It kind of seems unimaginable.
I think she's in a deal now, but there was a time when she wasn't signed, which was very shocking to me.
Yes.
Somebody on that level would get dropped. But the music business is very, very brutal and very hard and unforgiving.
Yes. Well, I have 2 singer-songwriter daughters, and my daughter Anna asked me to ask you, what do you want from someone when they walk into a room ready to write with you?
Honesty, presence. I don't want them being distracted by their phone.
Okay.
Ideally, they turn their phone off. I mean, you'll be surprised. Distraction's a big problem now.
Yes.
I find with young musicians, they're not fully there. They're sort of partly there. I want, courage. I don't want someone saying to me, "I don't think I can do that." It's not a sentence I want to hear. I want someone to try something maybe they're not comfortable with, because that's how you learn,
Yes.
I'm talking musically, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Or lyrically. Yeah, courage, honesty, presence, and also patience. Because the thing is, with every song, well, nearly every song I've written, not so much Angels, because that literally happened so quickly. But let me explain to you, for example, when we first started writing that, it sounded horrible. It sounded absolutely horrible. And I remember you go through this pain barrier of it not sounding good for a while. That can last for a couple of hours, where literally your skin is crawling. I get to a point sometimes where it's almost unbearable. I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. I'm letting down this person I'm writing with. I wish I wasn't here. I wish I was anywhere but here. This song is terrible. And then suddenly something will change. you're suddenly either you spot something or you change a chord or somebody comes up with a different melody or somebody suddenly realizes that the chorus is wrong. Something will change. And then it suddenly goes from terrible to great. And it's just, that's what's so terrifying about pop music is it's very easy to be terrible. You've got to really stick with it for it to go great. And you've got to have patience. It can be very painful sometimes.
Do you ever think when you started on something that this just isn't going to work and then you cut it and start again? Is the magic in just ploughing through that pain zone until something changes?
Yeah, no, I've often ploughed through and sometimes I've stopped it and gone, this is really not feeling this. And then we started something else and that's way better. I mean, that happened on that Robbie day when 2014, when we hadn't written together for how many years? It would be 12 years. That first day, everything I came up with in the day, in the morning and in the day, he was like, no, I don't like that. And I also prepared loads of backing tracks. He didn't like any of them, none of them. I think I might have played him 12 ideas. He didn't like any of them.
That's hard.
And it was very painful. And then luckily, I thought laterally and I thought, how am I going to get him excited about something? I'm going to say to him something I know that he likes. And I said, why don't we write a song like The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr.? And he went, oh, yeah, I love that song. And I said, well, why don't we do this? And I came up with a riff that was like The Candyman, but it was in a minor key instead of in a major key. And that became a song we wrote called Go Gentle.
Oh, yes.
Which is one of my favorites.
That's so lovely, that song.
Well, that's how it started. It was just basically me hooking him in by saying something I knew he loved. And then once he heard my riff, that was it. And we were off. But it was hours before that of lots of negativity. And, well, that's the other thing I'd say to your daughter is the thick skin thing is very, again, you've got to have a very, very thick skin in the music business. People are going to reject you again and again and again. And you've just got to go, oh, it's not personal.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I've been listening to your beautiful piano album, Go Gentle, Into the Light.
Thank you.
And I think you're touring, aren't you? Just you and a piano in the autumn. I had a look and thought you're not coming to London. Is that something that you...
No, I am. I'm playing at Ladbroke Hall.
Oh, are you? I couldn't see it on your website.
I think it hasn't been announced yet, but I think it's going to be September the 11th at Ladbroke Hall, which is a new venue in Ladbroke Grove, which is really great. They've got a beautiful Steinway there. And it's a nice size. It's not too small and it's not too big. So, yeah, I am definitely playing London.
Well, that's good to know. That I will keep looking out for that.
Yeah, you must come.
I am coming, for sure. And amongst all of this, and I know that I'm getting this in the wrong order, you wrote a folk opera based on Oscar Wilde's The Selfish Giant.
I did.
You wrote all the songs and the score in the film A Christmas Number 1.
Yeah.
Which I tried to find. Our Sky is on the blink, so I haven't been able to watch it. I watched the trailer.
It's funny. It's really funny.
No, I really want to see it. You've also been involved in music in films like Military Wives, Finding Nemo, Love Actually, Bridget Jones. You're writing, you're performing, you're producing, you're writing hit songs for singles, you're writing songs for films. At this point in time, which do you find either the most rewarding or most enjoyable?
That's a good question. I think my favorite thing is performance.
Okay.
I really enjoy performing with a band. I think that's my most favorite thing. I did a Lemon Trees gig recently in London at Amazing Grace, and that was tremendous fun. I really enjoy singing these days. I hated my voice for years and years, but I finally made peace with it. I really enjoy singing now. So I would say doing performance, yeah.
It's so interesting that you hated your voice, because I came to see you at Amazing Grace, which is a great venue. It was a fantastic gig. And I was with Sonia Jones, our mutual friend, and it's because of her that we're talking today. What was it about your voice you didn't like? I do my pathetic amount of singing, so I get so nervous beforehand that I think I'm going to be sick. But that's because half of the time it sounds okay and half of the time it really doesn't sound okay. Whereas with you and your musicianship, people are only ever going to love what you're doing. So what's not to like?
Well, it's a good question. And I don't know why I hated my voice for so long. Technique-wise, I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing singers. And so I measure myself against them, I suppose. And I'm never going to be as good as them. I'm never going to sing like Tina Turner. I'm never going to sing like Robbie Williams. You know, it's fine. But for years, I was like, so because I couldn't measure up to somebody on those levels, an A-list singer, I was like, well, if I can't be as good as them, I just won't sing.
Okay.
But recently I thought, well, never mind. I'm going to sing anyway. And again, it's breaking through that pain barrier thing of it's not as good as I would like it to be in my mind, but it's good enough and it's honest. At least I sound honest and real. You know, I'm not putting on a voice.
No.
That is my real voice. So, yeah. And now I'm not ashamed to get up there and sing. I'm singing at Glastonbury in 2 weeks.
Oh, are you?
I am.
With the Lemon Trees again?
Well, sadly, it's not the Lemon Trees. I'm doing a songwriting circle, in fact, with Chris Difford in the acoustic tent. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's only the acoustic tent, but, you know, that's going to be quite scary for me singing in Glastonbury, you know. But, you know, it's good to push through your fears.
Yes. And is there anything that you do before you go on stage or for something like that when you are nervous? Is there anything that you can do to quell those nerves?
Well, I meditate and go to a happy place. You know, I have a happy place near where I live here in Sussex. And I imagine being in that happy place and that calms me down.
And then you're ready to go.
I try not to over socialize when I'm nervous. I try and just not shut myself down, but just conserve energy. Let's put it that way. Because when you're on stage, you need energy is really important in my book. I don't like artists who don't have any energy. Well, there's a few exceptions to that. Leonard Cohen probably is the only exception. But all my favorite artists have a ton of energy.
Well, you must have a ton of energy because you're doing a huge amount of things. You've also been very involved with Save the Children. You've created and produced BBC Children in Needs album, got it covered. And you had artists like Olivia Colman and Helena Bonham Carter. What was it like working with them? Because I listened to them and they sounded wonderful on those tracks.
Well, it was mainly a joy. I'm not going to mention who was difficult to work with. Well, not difficult, but like more of a challenge. I'm not going to be personal about anyone, but most of the actors were really great and so focused, and they'd done a lot of prep. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed doing that. And I met Taylor Swift. I didn't know I was going to meet Taylor Swift. It just happened. And that's the joy of the music business. Odd things like that. I'll give you another great example of that. This week I was in Liverpool. I was hanging out with my son. He was doing work experience up there, and I just wanted to go and hang out. But I knew I wanted to get in touch with some old school friends, and I didn't know how to get in touch with them. I don't like going on Facebook. I don't like Facebook. So anyway, I decided, right, the way they might get in touch with me is if I do a gig in Liverpool. So I did the open night. There's an open mic night on a Monday night. And I knew someone who knew the guy who ran it. So I went there with my son and my friend, and we did 3 songs. And just as I'm literally going to the bar to get a drink, literally just turned up. And this guy taps me on the shoulder. And it's my best friend from school who I hadn't seen in 43 years.
Wow.
Rob Bell. And it was just such a joy. And that's the thing about music. You just don't know where it's going to take you. Yeah, it was really lovely because he's got a phenomenal memory. He can remember all the stuff I've forgotten of that time when I was 18, 17.
Let's talk about what you're doing right now. You've reformed the Lemon Trees. I loved coming to see you at the Amazing Grace. Alongside that, you are working on an animation film right now, starring Gerard Butler and Emilia Clarke. Sonia Jones, our mutual friend and vocal coach, is involved in that as well. Can you tell us about it?
All I can say, I'm not allowed to tell the title.
Oh, okay.
It's a children's animation made by Lupus, who did The Tiger Who Came to Tea, and
oh, yes.
it's the same company. So they're very, very good. And it's a full-length feature. I'm not really allowed to sort of go into details because they haven't officially announced it. It's a very interesting concept. Hasn't been done before in terms of the idea. I've written all the music and I've written all the songs. It's taken me 4 years on and off. It's been...
Gosh, it's been a long project.
Really, really challenging. It's been extremely challenging. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, I have to say. But the film's really beautiful, the look of it. I mean, it's very much aimed at little children, like 5 till 11, something like that. I don't have little children anymore. My kids are grown up. But, you know, I love children. So if I can enrich children's lives a little bit with something, that's a joy.
Well, that's very exciting. We will wait to see what it is.
It's definitely coming out this Christmas, though.
Okay.
I know that.
Before you go, just some rapid fire questions. So I thought I would give them titles, and they are titles to your songs. So the first one, Angels. Who have been the angels guiding you on your career path?
Wow. I'm going to have to say God.
Okay. No regrets. Could you name a regret?
Oh, my God. I've got so many regrets. I suppose I wish I didn't become an alcoholic. That would be my biggest regret.
And do you drink now, or do you not touch it now?
Not really, no. Occasionally.
Let me entertain you. Whose work do you most admire?
What, living?
Doesn't have to be.
Well, I guess I have to say the Beatles.
Yeah, they were one of a kind.
They were.
Lazy days? Doesn't sound like you have any. What do you most like doing when you're taking time off?
Swimming in the sea, cooking, sitting in the garden, looking at mowing the lawn. Oh, ironing I like. Reading books, listening to opera, going to the opera, going to the theatre, cultural things. Oh, hanging out with friends, talking to friends, talking on the phone to friends. Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like making connections.
Okay. Given the musical talent you have, how did you come to play the Seven Dwarfs Hi-Ho to David Bowie?
Wow, you've really done your research, Katie. I'm really impressed. Well, I was at the Groucho Club. I was the first piano player at the Groucho Club. It was so dead in that club at that point, totally dead. Nobody in it apart from the staff. And I used to play a Walt Disney medley just to make the staff laugh, really. And it just so happened that I was playing hi-ho, hi-ho, da-da-da-da-da-da on the piano when David Bowie walked through the door with his yellow suit from the Let's Dance video.
Wow.
And yeah, wow, indeed.
Did you stop playing immediately and play something else, or did you just continue on?
I ploughed on because remember that thing I said earlier about the show must go on? I just ploughed on playing that, feeling incredibly embarrassed because I just thought, wow, I'm the uncoolest person ever. He's the coolest person ever. And he said something like, nice playing, mate, nice playing. And love that Disney. He said something really nice as he was walking up the stairs because he was basically being shown around by the then owner. Yeah, and that was the first time I met him. And many years ago, I met him again. And he was just lovely, you know, and he's definitely in my top 5 artists for sure.
Best gig?
Well, I'd have to say ACDC.
Wow, that's a surprise.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to see the original lineup with Bon Scott. And if you're a proper ACDC fan, all the real fans know that the first lineup is way superior to the second lineup. And I saw that at Liverpool Empire when I was 14. And that just changed my life, basically. The sound of that band changed my life.
Okay, and then worst gig, as in one that you did?
Well, there was one Robbie gig where the drummer, he had neurovirus, funny enough, and he was throwing up throughout the show. It was at an Italian race course. Not race course, like a racing car course.
Yeah.
Where they used to test the Ferraris. And the gig was just terrible because poor Chris was just throwing up all the way through the gig.
Oh, poor guy.
So he was really almost unable to play properly. He didn't have any strength. And the whole band just sort of collapsed. And it was really bad. And I remember the sound man coming backstage. And this is when he used to record the gigs on cassettes. And he threw the cassette at me and went, "If you ever play that badly again, I am resigning." That was the worst gig ever. And yeah, that was a bad gig.
It seems a bit unfair that you were the one blamed for it when someone else was unwell.
Well, I was the musical director. Someone's got to take the kicking.
Yeah. We seem to have remained completely impervious to fame, talking to you. And you could be swaggering around, feeling super pleased with yourself. And
I did swagger around. I had my swaggering around phase.
Did you?
I absolutely did. I used to have a Bentley, a driver. I had my grandiosity phase. Don't worry.
Okay.
But I've been humbled. So I'm not in that phase now.
And what has kept you you seem so grounded now?
Well, I'm sober. I would say that's the biggest thing that's changed in my life. I'm pretty much always sober. So that grounds you.
Can I ask, when the drinking started, was it the whole...
Well, it wasn't just drinking. I had multiple addictions. It went on for years. So I've only recently been sober of those addictions. I had at least 3 without going into the details. But, and now I'm learning to be sober. It's a very humbling experience not being an addict. Well, I'll always be an addict, but not being an active addict. Let's put it that way. It will right-size you. I was too big in my mind, way too big. And now I'm just a little person like everyone else.
I mean, it must be the hardest thing to stop these addictions. That's a huge mountain to climb, isn't it?
Yeah, but I had a rock bottom. The best way to get sober is to have a rock bottom. When things are so bad that you have to say your life is powerless against this addiction. You're powerless against it. But most addicts have to reach such a calamitous point where they are forced to stop.
Is there any advice that you would give, having gone through this process, to other people who have an addiction of some kind?
Go to a meeting. Go to AA or NA or whatever it is, GA, SA. There's so many addictions out there. Go to a meeting and hear how people have become sober. You might go, yeah, I want that life. Because you're probably not happy if you you might think you're happy, but there's a difference between happiness and joy. Happiness might literally last 3 minutes. Joy is with me most of the time on a good day.
That's wonderful. Okay, thank you. So Taylor Swift, your new best friend, said, "I think songwriting is the ultimate form of being able to make anything that happens in your life productive." Would you agree?
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I would definitely agree with Taylor, my new Bessie friend, yes.
Well, Guy, thank you so, so much for talking to me today. And thank you also for the songs that you have written that I have danced around my house to for years now. And so great for me to meet the person who actually wrote them. I was just thinking it must be such a cool thing to know that in generations to come, those songs will still be being played and still be making people's days better for listening to them.
Thank you. I hope that is the case.
Thank you for today.
It's all right. It's a pleasure.
You've been listening to Bandwidth Conversations. Thanks to Anna B, Head of Marketing, to all at the Podcast Consultant, to Bagawire for the music, to the Money Maze Podcast. Thank you for listening. Any feedback, please email me, katie@bandwidthconversations.com. Please sign up on our website, www.bandwidthconversations.com, so we can notify you about new podcast releases. We hope to see you again soon.